Ladies and gentlemen, there is a dangerous misconception floating in modern discourse, one that suggests that to acknowledge the inherent psychological vulnerabilities of women is somehow demeaning or manipulative. On the contrary, to understand these intricacies is not only a mark of maturity in a man, it is a moral obligation, not for exploitation but for connection, for truth, for love, and ultimately for order in the chaos of male-female dynamics. Now understand this, a weakness is not synonymous with inferiority. It is simply a point where the armor is thinner, where the self is more open, more susceptible to both hurt and healing. And if you're a man of strength, discipline, and vision, then you must know these truths, not to control her, but to protect, to lead, and yes, sometimes, to challenge her in a way that strengthens both of you. Let's dive into it. There's something critically misunderstood, something that has fallen through the cracks in our modern dialogues about men and women, and it's this: emotional validation is not a luxury for women, it is a necessity. It's the air they breathe in relational dynamics. It's not about pampering or coddling, and it's certainly not about indulging every whim. No, it's about witnessing her experience with presence and truth, and letting her know, at a core level, that she is seen, heard, and psychologically held. And this is where most men fail, not out of malice but out of ignorance. Men are problem solvers, that's our instinct. You tell us something's broken, and we immediately scan for the nearest wrench. But when a woman brings you her emotions, she's not giving you a riddle to solve, she's presenting a mirror of her current reality. It's not logic she's demanding, it's resonance. When she's hurt, confused, or anxious, and she opens up to you, she's not asking for strategy, she's asking for connection. She's asking, do you care enough to sit in this with me, even when it's messy? And if your response is cold detachment, silence, or worse, a dismissive "you're overreacting," what you've just done is invalidate her very sense of being. You've signaled that her internal world is irrelevant, or worse, irrational. And here's the thing, when a woman repeatedly receives that message, spoken or unspoken, she doesn't just stop communicating, she stops trusting, she disconnects, she withdraws into resentment or silence, or in the worst cases, she starts looking for that validation somewhere else. And that's not just emotional fragility, that's neurobiology. Women are evolutionarily and neurologically wired to prioritize connection, social attunement, and emotional safety. It's not a weakness, it's a different mode of strength. A woman's nervous system is tuned to pick up emotional cues and relational shifts at levels most men will never naturally perceive. And so when you invalidate her emotions, even subtly, you're not just disagreeing, you're destabilizing her sense of safety. Now here's the paradox, emotional validation is not the same as emotional agreement. You don't have to endorse every feeling she has. You don't have to say, "You're right, I'm a monster," just because she's upset. That's not the point. The point is to acknowledge that her experience is real to her, and that you care enough to be present for it. You say things like, "I see this is upsetting you, help me understand what's behind it," or "I didn't know you felt that way, tell me more." That is not submission, that is strength, that is leadership. Because let's be honest, being emotionally available requires discipline. It's not weakness, it's control. It's the ability to regulate your own defensiveness, your own impulse to dismiss or fix, and instead remain present while someone else experiences discomfort. That takes power. And when a man can do that consistently, he becomes rare, he becomes unforgettable, because he's offering something that 90% of men never even realize is needed. But here's the danger: too many men either swing to one extreme or the other. They become emotionally vacant, detached, stoic in the shallowest sense of the word, or they become overly accommodating, constantly validating everything, trying to please her to avoid conflict. Neither works. One makes her feel invisible, the other makes her lose respect. You have to strike the balance, empathy without weakness, presence without submission. And let me be very clear, emotional validation is not a manipulative tool. It's not something you do just to get compliance or affection, or sex. If that's your motivation, she will feel it. Women are experts at detecting inauthenticity. You do this because it's the right thing to do. Because if you've taken on the responsibility of being in a relationship with a woman, you've also taken on the responsibility of becoming emotionally literate, of learning her language, not just demanding she speak yours. You don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be perfect. But you do have to be present. That means noticing when she's withdrawn and asking about it, even when it's inconvenient. That means staying with her in a difficult conversation, instead of shutting down or walking out. That means learning to listen, not for the sake of reacting, but for the sake of understanding. And when you do that, when you offer that sacred space for her emotions, you become the one man she trusts more than anyone else. You become a place of safety in a world that often feels overwhelming and cruel. You become oxygen, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of real intimacy. We live in a time where the idea of security in a relationship has been overly simplified, reduced to income levels, job titles and credit scores. But this is a shallow interpretation of what women truly seek when they say they want to feel secure. Yes, financial stability matters, but it is only one layer. The deeper and more psychologically potent form of security has little to do with how many zeros are in your bank account. It has everything to do with who you are when things fall apart. A woman intuitively looks for psychological security in a man, not because she's weak, but because she knows life is chaotic, unpredictable, and full of threats to emotional safety. She wants to know that when the storm comes, the man beside her won't become the storm himself. This means you must possess a kind of internal order that anchors her, especially when her own emotions are in turmoil. If you become reactive, withdrawn, defensive, or locked up in your own confusion every time there's pressure, she begins to feel alone, even if you're physically present. You need to understand that women are biologically designed to scan for stability in their environment. Throughout evolutionary history, this was a matter of survival. The man who was calm under threat, decisive under pressure, and clear about his values became the protector and provider, not just in material terms, but in emotional terrain. Fast forward to the modern world, and that same instinct is still active. If you're erratic, if your word is inconsistent, if your emotions swing like a wrecking ball, she may not tell you, but something in her starts to shut down. Her trust erodes, her feminine energy retreats. Security means you know who you are and where you're going. It means you have a defined sense of self, a trajectory, a vision. When a woman sees that you are governed by purpose and principles, rather than impulses and moods, she relaxes in your presence. She feels that even if life throws punches, you won't fold at the first sign of discomfort. That steadiness is what allows her to open up, to trust, to soften. The tragedy today is that many men have been conditioned to believe that just making money is enough. They ignore the psychological responsibility that comes with leadership. You can buy her a house, but if you can't make her feel safe inside it, it's just walls and a roof. You can take her to dinner, but if your presence is distant, dismissive, or unstable, she'll leave feeling more isolated than when she arrived. Women aren't just measuring your net worth, they're measuring your character, your consistency, your emotional containment. This doesn't mean you have to be invulnerable. In fact, vulnerability, when expressed through strength, is deeply attractive, but vulnerability without direction becomes weight. If your emotions consistently overpower your ability to lead, she begins to carry the emotional burden for both of you, and over time that dynamic crushes intimacy. What she's looking for is not a robot, but a man who can feel without losing himself. That's real security, to experience pain, uncertainty, even fear, and still remain grounded in your values and responsibilities. Too many men avoid conflict, stay silent in the name of peace, or swing to the other extreme and attempt to control everything with dominance. But real psychological security is created when you're calm in disagreement, firm in your boundaries, and clear in your intentions. When a man can hold the emotional weight of a situation without lashing out or shutting down, a woman feels that she's not alone in navigating the unknown. That sense of "I've got this" is not about bravado, it's about earned confidence. It's the result of inner work, of developing mental discipline, and of refusing to let chaos govern your response to life. Security at its core is reliability. It's about whether she can count on you, not just when things are good, but when they're unbearable. Can she speak her truth without you folding or attacking? Can she express fear without you mocking or minimizing it? Can she fall apart sometimes, knowing that you won't fall apart with her? These are the questions she's asking, not with words, but with observation. So when she says she wants to feel secure, hear what she's really saying. Can I trust your strength, not just your power but your patience, your presence, your purpose? That's not a request for money, that's a call for maturity. And only the man who has wrestled with his own chaos is equipped to answer it. There is a fundamental misunderstanding among men when it comes to the concept of attention. Most men assume that giving a woman attention is about texting her good morning, liking her photos, or spending time together on a weekend. But attention for a woman runs far deeper than this surface-level engagement. Attention is not just about contact. It is about presence. It is about attunement. It is quite literally the currency by which she measures her value in your world, and if you fail to grasp this, you will fail to maintain her respect, her interest, and eventually her loyalty. You must understand that attention is tied directly to how a woman experiences love. To ignore her is to make her feel invisible, and to make her feel invisible is to communicate, whether intentionally or not, that she is unworthy of your energy. Now, it's not that she wants to be the center of your universe at all times. That's not the point. What she needs is to know that within your structured, purpose-driven life, she holds a defined and meaningful space. When you look at her, do you see her? When she speaks, are you listening, or just waiting for your turn to reply? Men often give their best attention to their careers, their goals, their distractions, then offer whatever scraps are left to the woman standing beside them, and then they wonder why she becomes distant, irritable, cold, or begins to emotionally drift. She's not being needy. She's communicating that she feels forgotten, devalued, replaceable, and when a woman feels replaceable, she either shuts down emotionally, or she looks for somewhere else to feel significant. But, and this is crucial, the answer is not to smother her with constant praise or shallow flattery. That kind of attention is cheap, and women are sharp. They know when a man is trying to manipulate them through charm. What they are looking for is intentional attention. That means eye contact without a screen in your hand. That means remembering the things she said in passing. That means noticing the little shifts in her mood and asking questions before she has to ask for help. That means touching her with purpose, not out of attention. Attention in its purest form is your ability to make her feel that, in a chaotic and distracted world, you see her clearly. And to be seen clearly is one of the deepest human desires. For women who are often more relationally attuned than men, this is not a casual want, it's a need, and not because they're weak or insecure, but because they are emotionally structured to track meaning through connection. Now, this doesn't mean you abandon your goals or sacrifice your mission. In fact, the opposite is true. When you are deeply rooted in purpose, your attention becomes more valuable, more selective. A man who knows where he's going, who has boundaries and structure, when he turns his focus to a woman, it means something, and she feels it. But a man who's lost, who gives his attention freely to everything and everyone, eventually becomes less significant to her. Why? Because his focus isn't earned, it's scattered, it's unanchored. Women don't want all of your time, they want to matter in your time. If you give a woman everything but make her feel emotionally peripheral, you will lose her. But if you are building your kingdom, and still manage to carve out deliberate moments of connection, where she feels prioritized, respected, and emotionally acknowledged, you will deepen her loyalty beyond what most men can even imagine. And let's not ignore this truth. The absence of attention is more painful to a woman than open contact. At least in a fight there's engagement. But when you turn cold, distant, or indifferent, it signals withdrawal at the deepest level. She doesn't just feel that you're angry, she feels that she's ceased to matter. And when a woman feels she no longer matters, you're no longer a safe place for her heart. So be careful with your attention, because every time you give it, you're sending a you matter or you don't. And over time, those small unspoken messages form the foundation of how safe she feels in your presence. That safety will determine how she loves you, how she supports you, and whether she stays connected to you through seasons of difficulty. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be present, not constantly but consistently. That is what separates the man who keeps her heart from the one who merely held it for a moment. There is a profound truth that eludes many men, not because they are incapable of understanding it, but because no one ever taught them to listen beneath the surface. And it is this: a woman's words often mask her deeper needs. She doesn't always say what she means, not because she's deceptive or manipulative, but because her communication is layered, nuanced and deeply emotional. You must learn to hear not just what is being said, but what is being felt. That is the mark of a psychologically mature man. When a woman says, "You never listen to me," she may not be talking about the specific words you missed. What she's expressing is a deeper emotional experience. I feel alone. I feel like my thoughts and feelings don't matter to you. I feel disconnected. And if you respond defensively, "I do listen," or "I just didn't think it was important," you've missed the entire. Yeah. Because you responded to the words and not to the need. She needed to feel understood, not corrected. She needed to feel emotionally held, not logically. Men communicate for information. Women more often communicate for connection. The difference is not a flaw. It's a reflection of a different relational orientation. You may think she's overreacting, being dramatic, or making men seem at all new, but to her, those moments where she feels unseen or dismissed are not small. They cut deep. They signal a loss of intimacy, a threat to relational safety. And if you're tone deaf to that reality, you will unintentionally push her away, even while believing you're doing everything right. So when she's upset about something that seems trivial, perhaps a short reply, a forgotten detail, a change in your don't rush to defend yourself. Don't jump in. Instead, pause. Look at her. Ask yourself, what's she really trying to express? Is it fear? Is it fear? Is it lonely? Is it the need to feel important to you again? Because most of the time, what looks like irritation is actually hurt. What sounds like nagging is often a plea for attention. And what appears as a silence may be the loudest cry of all. You cannot navigate a woman's emotional landscape with a map made only of all. That's like trying to read poetry with a calculator. Her communication is intuitive, expressive, often indirect, and you must become attuned to the emotional frequency beneath the content. This doesn't mean you become subservient, or that you validate irrational behavior. It means you stay grounded in your presence, and learn to feel the message. Why the message? That is awareness. That is what separates a man from a boy. And here's where many men fall into a trap. They believe that if they just say the right give, or give the help, or follow a set of relationship rules, they will keep her happy. But a woman's need is not for scripted behavior. It's for authentic connection. She wants to know that when she speaks, you're not just hearing her voice, you're feeling her hope. That when she's hurt, she doesn't need to scream or collapse to get your attention. You're already there, already tuned in. There is no checklist for this. There is only presence, emotional intelligence, the ability to slow down your reaction and lean into curiosity. When she's upset, instead of arguing, ask her, "What are you really feeling right now?" And then listen, not to refute, not to reply, but to understand. And understand this too. Sometimes she may not even know what she's feeling. Emotions rise and shift like tides. What she needs is not your diagnosis, but your patience, your stillness, your willingness to be there, without demand or clarity, before she's ready to give it. This is not weakness. This is mastery. To hold space for someone else's emotion without becoming a storm yourself. That is strength. And it will earn you a level of trust, admiration, and devotion that superficial charm or dominance never will. A woman will surrender fully only to the man who makes her feel psychologically safe. And psychological safety isn't created through power. It's created through presence, empathy, and consistency. So if you find yourself confused by her words, don't dismiss her. Lean in, ask questions, explore the emotion beneath the statement. Learn to interpret the language of her heart, not just her mouth, because her soul doesn't speak in bullet points. It speaks in energy, in subtext, in feeling. And if you train yourself to hear that, you will become rare. You will become the man she doesn't just want, but the one she can trust with her deepest self. There is a fundamental dynamic in male-female relationships that most men misinterpret, and it causes immense confusion, frustration, and even resentment. A woman will test you. That is not up for debate. It is inevitable. But what you must understand, what you must internalize, is that she doesn't test you to hurt you, undermine you, or challenge your authority. For the sake of conflict, she tests you to feel safe. Emotional safety, psychological stability.
These are not luxuries for her, they are necessities, and her testing is not a soundless disrespect. It is a search for strength. To the untrained man, these tests feel like irrational behavior. She questions your decisions. She pushes your buttons. She brings up emotional issues when everything seems fine. She might become distant or emotionally intense without clear reason. And the immature man works with either aggression or avoidance. He either tries to dominate her into silence or withdraws to escape the emotional tension. In both cases, he fails the test, not because he is weak, but because he misunderstands the purpose. What she's really doing is this: can I trust you? Not just when things are easy, but when things are difficult. Can you remain centered while I'm spinning? Can you stay calm while I'm chaotic? Can you still hold presence when I challenge your edges? These are not conscious questions. She doesn't sit down and plan them, but biologically, emotionally, relationally, her nervous system is wired to seek safety in the presence of masculine groundedness. Her testing is not an act of war, it is an act of seeking. Now that seeking often comes in inconvenient or uncomfortable forms, she might accuse you unfairly, she might exaggerate, she might question your integrity, and you'll feel the rise of indignation. You'll want to defend yourself, correct her, shut it down. But in that moment, what she's really asking is, are you emotionally stronger than me right now? Are you secure enough in yourself to not crumble under pressure? And if you can do that, if you crumble, lash out or retreat, she receives a clear message. This man cannot contain my emotions. He cannot contain me. This is not about playing games. It's about nature. If a woman is going to attach herself to you, physically, emotionally, spiritually, she must know that your container is stronger than her chaos. That doesn't mean she wants a dictator. It means she wants a man whose nervous system doesn't collapse when she's overwhelmed, whose ego doesn't react when she's volatile, and whose voice doesn't rise just because hers does. You must learn to interpret the storm not as a threat, but as a call to presence. When she throws a test your way, the question is why? Is she doing this to me? The question is, who do I need to be right now? Because the man who cannot remain grounded will always be ruled by the emotions of others, and the man who reacts impulsively to every challenge will never be trusted with leadership in a relationship. Understand this. Women are not attracted to perfection. They're attracted to integrity, to congruence, to the man who says what he means what he says. He doesn't flinch when emotions run high. If she tests you and you meet her with calm strength, not passivity, not appeasement, but presence, something shifts in her. She relaxes. Her defenses lower. She feels the strength of your container. And in that space, love deepens. Respect is built. Trust is earned. But if you personalize the test, if you make it about your ego, your pride, your comfort, you will react emotionally, and she will sense instability. She may not understand it intellectually, but her body will register. He's not grounded, he's not safe, and once that feeling sets in, it's only a matter of time before connection erodes. So when she tests, meet her with truth, not theatrics. Speak calmly, stand your ground, and don't be baited into emotional chaos. Be assertive without being aggressive. Be clear without being cold. Show her, through your presence, that you are not a boy seeking approval. You are a man standing firm in who you are. And when you do that consistently, not perfectly, but authentically, you will stop testing as frequently. Why? Because the need for reassurance has been satisfied. She knows now, not just in her mind but in her body, that you are strong enough to be leaned on. That you are not just a man she loves, but a man she can trust. There is a truth about feminine nature that society often tries to deny, suppress or reframe through the lens of ideology, but it remains a truth regardless of how uncomfortable it makes people feel. A woman does not, and will not, submit to a man she does not respect. Submission in this context is not about servitude or blind obedience. It is not weakness. It is not oppression. Feminine submission is voluntary alignment. It is a choice made from trust, admiration and emotional safety. When a woman respects a man, deeply and authentically, she naturally opens herself to him, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. But when respect is lost, her openness closes, her softness hardens, and her feminine energy retreats into protection. Now submission cannot be demanded, it cannot be forced, it cannot be negotiated, it must be evoked. And the way it is evoked is not by asserting dominance, but by embodying integrity, purpose, and masculine strength. A man who lives by his principles who says what he means and means what he says, who stands firm when life pressures him to bend. That is the man a woman instinctively respects, because he has internal order. He is not emotionally volatile. He's not trying to be liked or validated. He is not desperate for approval. He is rooted, calm, clear. And that structure provides something profoundly attractive to the feminine safety. You see, women test boundaries, not just to provoke, but to explore the shape of the man they're dealing with. They want to know, can he handle me? Can he handle life? Can he handle himself? If the answer is yes, respect grows. And when respect grows, her natural tendency is to follow his lead, not out of obligation, but out of trust. When a man leads with clarity, without arrogance, without insecurity, a woman feels a sense of peace. She no longer has to overfunction. She doesn't need to control everything. She can relax into her feminine core, because she knows someone competent, dependable and strong is holding the frame. But when a man falters, when he breaks his word, avoids responsibility, or crumbles under emotional pressure, she begins to question his strength. And the moment she begins to doubt him, she instinctively pulls back. She steps into control mode. She becomes sharp, critical, and emotionally distant. Not because she wants to be that way, but because she feels she has to be. When the man is not the anchor, the woman becomes the storm. Not out of choice, but out of fear. Respect is not maintained through charm, gifts or sweet words. It is earned through consistency, conviction and discipline. A woman will not follow a man who cannot lead himself. She may tolerate him. She may even stay with him out of habit, obligation or fear of being alone. But she will not open fully to him. She will not admire him. And that over time is what kills intimacy. Because feminine desire is fueled by masculine authority, not the kind that controls others, but the kind that governs the self. If you lack direction, if your words are empty, if your emotions dominate you, rather than the other way around, you will lose her respect, and with it her submission. Submission is an energetic response to strength. A woman will yield to a man's guidance when she feels that his leadership serves a purpose greater than his ego. She will offer her heart, her body, her trust, when she feels that he is capable of protecting, providing and persevering, not just in the world, but in the relationship itself. If she senses that his strength is real, not performative, not boastful, but deep and steady, she will mirror that with devotion. And that devotion is not weakness. It's a sign that she feels emotionally safe enough to surrender control. But this also comes with responsibility. If a woman is willing to submit to your leadership, then you must carry that role with honor. You must not abuse it. You must not use it to feed your ego or to dominate. Leadership in a relationship is not about control. It's about direction, vision and protection. If you lead well, she will follow, not because she's forced, but because she wants to, because it feels right, because it resonates with the deepest parts of her feminine nature. And that is something no amount of manipulation or coercion can ever manufacture. It must be earned by who you are, not just by what you say, ladies and gentlemen. In the end, understanding the feminine is not about control. It's about depth, responsibility and strength. A woman does not open to a man because he demands it. She opens because she feels safe, because she feels seen, and because she respects who he is at his core. If you wish to be the man she trusts, follows and loves without restraint, then become the man who leads himself first, honorably, consistently, and with unwavering purpose. Do not seek submission, seek respect. And through that respect, the connection you build will not only last, it will transform you both.